Well, our guest speakers today are our own SLCs. And we have Michelle, Mary Jane, Karen, and Fran, and Peter, joining us up here in the living room. You may have wondered what this was. And they are going to take us back to some of the basic principles of science of mind in a lively conversation. They are calling, what is your manifesto for 2018? These living room conversations are much like the ones that Ernest Holmes held back when he started his ministry. And they're not unlike our own CLF circles in the living rooms today. So let us welcome and join our SLCs in their conversation.
Thank you, Bobby. Okay, well, I'm so excited you could all be here today talking about our manifesto for 2018. And so we have some questions that kind of will guide our talk, what we want to say about them. You can look at the questions for your life. You can also look at them, how that would affect this coming year, 2018. So feel free to respond to the question that's called. I will keep the time. So we have about 5 minutes per each question, okay? All right, so our first question is, what is the most beautiful and true thing you can imagine for your life?
I'd like to do that, Michelle. When I first saw that question, I wanted to skip over it. And then that caused me to really start to think deeply about that. Why? And I think because when I saw that, the images that came up was things like relationship or wealth or health and all those kinds of things, and that I didn't have a mental equivalent what that could be in some cases. Then I realized that all of those are on the external. Those are all of the world or the material. And in my experience, I'm sure some of you who ever had a Kundalini experience or ecstasy or bliss during meditation, you realize that the sweetest thing is that what comes from within, that sense of God or spirit or the universe flowing through you and as you in such an intense level of love that nothing in the exterior world can match that. And as that comes through you and you experience it more often, the rest of the world comes into alignment. And then you do have a blissful life. And that's what I've experienced.
The question one more time is, what is the most beautiful and true thing you can imagine for your life?
I think for me, the most beautiful and true thing would be that I am constantly knowing and trusting that God is my source, that the energy, universal energy of love runs in, through, and around me all of the time, and that I can call on that energy all of the time to create what I want in my life.
Does anybody else feel called for this question?
Probably the most true thing for me is to see Creative Living Fellowship be the beacon of light that it is to really affect more and more people. And this is the love, light, and the truth of each and every one of us. And we are just coming here to re-understand it. And I think that this message of inner peace and responsibility and oneness really needs to be absorbed and lived by everyone so that we can have a really, really peaceful life on this earth. And so I would really like to see that expand more and more. Not only Creative Living Fellowship, but other centers of truth. It doesn't have to be New Thought. It can be just any spiritual enlightenment. It could be a one-on-one relationship. It doesn't have to be an organized group of people that meet once a week or once a month. It can be just anybody that sees the truth about themselves and lives that truth.
For me, this question, when I was even just joking about it this morning, when I look at, so what is the most beautiful and true thing you can imagine for your life? I look really far in advance. I look to when I hopefully am blessed someday with grandchildren. I look at that as, that's when I will feel like I have arrived. I have done it. I'm sitting around and I've made it, and I've got a bunch of grandbabies running around me. And so when I bring it back to, but what does that mean for 2018? That means that the children that I have now need me to foster that in them so that they can be able to have relationship and have the desire to want to bring more beings into this world. So for me to look at what everybody has said, it comes down to that love, that place of being who and whose you are, and then for me to give that to my children, and it affects the way that I am looking at how I will develop my day around my children for this year and for the years to come. So that's where my head went with this question. Do we feel complete with this question? Okay. So our next question is, what are you really passionate about?
That one's easy. It's everything. Everything. Anything that I'm involved in, anything that I'm doing, I am just 100% there. I'm into it. I'm like a dog with a new toy or a child. I'm just, I'm focused and I'm into it and I'm loving it. And so I would say whatever I'm doing, I'm passionate about it. And it's just being fully present, I think. And it just, really enjoying things. And I think that in order to do that, we have to really be in tune with who we are, which everybody's been saying, who we are, which is we are one with the divine.
When I saw that question, I'm passionate about a lot of things. Passionate about my animals. I'm passionate about my data, right? You guys know me. But what I'm really seriously passionate about is deepening into these spiritual practices, because I honestly see the difference that they've made in my life and the lives of people around me, and I want to be able to bring that to you guys. So that's what I'm passionate about.
Similarly to Fran, the opening sentence in our textbook says that one day science and religion will walk hand in hand from the visible to the invisible. And today, in this century, we are seeing that right now. We are seeing science verifying the work that we have. Our spiritual practices are all based on can be supported by scientific evidence. And those of us who've been in Science of Mind for a number of years, we've already had the evidence in our own experiences. So I am passionate about bridging that science and spirituality, making it understandable for those of us who are the left-brainers, who have to have some kind of process to be able to believe something. That was my history with Science of Mind. And that studying and learning about the science behind our teachings I get very passionate about that.
And I'm kind of bifurcated in my passion, because I have a successful business I've had for 45 years or so, which is a long time. And I am very passionate about that because I learn constantly new things. And I am so grateful to be able to have clients that I do business-to-business high-tech marketing. And I'm so grateful to have clients who really rely on me to do new and greater things each year as the developments in technology change. And that really fills me with joy. That is really a lot of fun, to learn new things and to apply them so that my clients become more successful. But then probably the greatest passion is allowing me to support Michelle and her passion for this church. She is energized with the ability to just teach these principles and come up here every week, except now she's recharging her batteries, come up here every week to share them. And she loves teaching, she loves speaking, and I love helping support her in any way that I can in doing that. So that's two distinct different passions.
For myself, I have a lot of passions. I also have the passion of deepening into my spiritual practice, as I'm now a spiritual life coach and I'm working on my ministerial degree and all of that. But it still, again, comes to the children in the church and the church. And I think one of the main drivers in the youth ministry right now would be relating our science of mind principles to our young people. And I don't remember who, maybe someone up here will remember who said that if every child learned to meditate before they were 8 years old, our world would be peaceful. Is that Wayne Dyer or is that Deepak? No, I think it was somebody more. Maybe, maybe. But if anybody knows who that is, I'd love to know that quote. But I feel a big calling to teaching, to getting out there to teaching it to children, but going to the source of like teachers or parents so that they are teaching the children. We tend to come to church every Sunday and we're learning all of these principles for ourselves, and we take them out to the other adults in the world, and then we forget them in the very workings with our young people. And so then they grow up needing to find these principles, and then really it's just this cycle that keeps going. And I would love to see us, get it to these young people now so that they don't have to start all over when they're adults. They're already developing their life from who and whose they are, and in that knowing. So that's something obviously I have some passion about. The Dalai Lama? Thank you. Thank you. I knew it was somebody. That's Pam for you. Thank you, Pam. So anyway, that's something that I'm passionate about, is getting the meditative practices to our young people. Anybody else on this? We feel complete? Okay. So our third question is, what do you want to be remembered for? I love this question.
Are you ready? Okay. When I first heard this question, I got very emotional and I teared up. And there's different levels to it. One, dear Michelle is talking about children and her children. I don't have any children, and so when I think of what do I want to be remembered for, that's a legacy, is children, And I don't have that legacy, so I think it hit me on a lot of different levels. And on a material level, on something tangible, I was very much a part of the beginnings of CLF, so I can say that, I have that. But I think on a whole different level, what I really want to be remembered for is, and what legacy I would like to leave is one of kindness and just acknowledging people and their humanness for who they are, loving them, and not demanding that they do things my way, whatever that is, and just really being involved with humans on a human level and on a loving level and through kindness. That is, to me, the most important thing that I can leave behind.
I think what I'd like to be remembered for is being a spiritual life coach and a life coach to women, and in that I am intuitive and that I can help people to see who they truly are all of the time, and that I have a passion with bliss, and that people can live a bliss-filled life every single day.
Yeah, I had a similar reaction to Mary Jane, because at what level, right? I have a son and a grandson, and I think probably the thing though that I probably most want to be remembered for is my love and my passion for nature and the environment.
I would like to be remembered as having the ability to use these principles of religious science in a transformative way in my own life. It was 3 years ago in January, this week, that I was in the hospital a year after major heart surgery, and I was near death. And the only solutions that the doctors could come up with was a heart transplant. And that was not acceptable to me. So I found alternative ways to heal myself. And since that time, I'm here. And I'm active, and I'm working out, and I'm using these principles every day to show how they work in not the spiritual way, just the spiritual way, but the scientific way. So I would like to be remembered as using these principles to dramatically transform my physical being.
Nice. We're glad you're still here.
No, thank
That's
you.
for sure. For myself, what I want to be remembered for, when my mother passed away in 2012, the number one thing that people would say about her was that she was the epitome of unconditional love. She had friends from every walk of life. I mean, I remember growing up as a kid, and she had a Native American friend who was 6-something, and I was a little girl, and he'd come in and he had the long hair, and I would just think, oh my gosh, who is this? And then she had a truck driver friend that would stop over sometimes when he was in town, and I mean, she was married, they were friends with this person, but he just needed a place to crash for the night, and he was all very scary looking. And then she just collected you. She loved you. It didn't matter where you were in life. She loved you, and she was there for you. And when she passed, this sanctuary was full of people who were very sad because that was their person. She was their person. And that really hit me, and I really, using these practices, and I want to be that unconditional love. I want to be that example of the truth for people that are in my sphere, my circle. And I want to be those open arms for wherever you are and whatever you've been through or are going through, that you can come to me, and I'm here for you. And I'm not judging, I'm just unconditional. And so that's, I think, one of the biggest things through the spiritual life journey or spiritual life coach journey is to learn to see that in everyone else, to see that everybody is God expressing, and to be able to take away all the different layers and to just be able to see the truth in that person. That's one of the main things that we actually do in a session, is to just hold that and see that, no matter what's presenting at the time. And at first that was a little bit of work for me, but I do that so much better now, and I know that's even growing more. So I hope, I don't want to die anytime soon, but I hope that when that day comes, that's what's said about me. Anyone else? We feel complete? Okay, our last question is, how do you see yourself expressing your gifts?
Well, it's been a 10-year journey of strengthening my gifts or finding my gifts. So this month is 10 years. And I now finally see something I just finished writing the first draft of a book. So that's exciting for me. The second draft just seems to be taking longer. And then I see that as a way of expanding, teaching these principles, not necessarily directly in the Science and Mind Centers, but to the general public, taking these principles to them in a way they may understand it, and also using that in a way of workshops and teaching and that kind of thing. I want to continue to expand these teachings because it's totally transformed my life. And I know many people in here who've been through what I've been in classes with have transformed their lives, and it's if we can expand this to the point where people are coming from a place of love and unconditional love and recognizing that we are all human beings doing our best, it'll solve 99% of the problems in the world. It really would. We don't have to focus on ideologies and economic policies and principles. love is the only principle that will really solve all the problems, period.
The question once again?
The question once again is, how do you see yourself expressing your gifts?
When I graduated from college, way back in the early 70s, I was fortunate enough to get a job with what I called the Disneyland of Design, because it was a very exclusive design firm that had clients all over the world. And one of my mentors was Tom Hamilton. And Tom unfortunately passed away in the late 80s, but after I moved out to Arizona, he was a great mentor and just an unassuming guy, but very, very creative. And even before the phrase, "What would Jesus do?" I would utter, "What would Tom do?" in a particularly challenging project. And I kind of channeled Tom. He was a terrific artist and a great graphic designer. And so in being able to, and creativity is really my life for my work as well as for Creative Living Fellowship. So being able to tap into that space, that energy, that all-knowingness is really my divine place. It's where I really feel I excel.
Yeah, I sort of struggled with this question a little bit too, because not unlike Pete, I'm, still working on what are my gifts, right? What I did discover, though, as part of my spiritual life coach journey was that I do have the gift of knowing. I have been, on this spiritual journey with the God of my knowing since I was 12 years old. And so I can bring that as a gift. The knowing of who and whose I am, and the knowing of who and whose you are. And that's two-legged, four-legged, furred, feathered, scaled, finned. It doesn't matter.
Get all the animals in there.
Well, I love how I've been listening to their answers, and everybody, it's so them. It's so much their personalities and who they are, and it's beautiful. I would say that through the teachings, through the classes I've taken, through this entire spiritual journey with CLF and before that, of working with the principles of Ernest Holmes, I have become able to really express who I am. I wasn't authentic, I don't think, until I really started working on myself on a spiritual level. I was more mimicking what other people were doing because I didn't know what was really me. And I've been, really focused on finding out, letting it reveal itself through me. Who am I? And letting that reveal itself, and it's a lot better than just trying to do something, be something that I'm not. I really feel it's authentic and it's real and it's me, and it's always evolving and changing. And it's a little different than what I started out by saying. We need to have a map for our journey, right? We should have something. It's also always changing and evolving, and who we are is always revealing more of itself, and so it's a beautiful thing. It's not static.
So for me, so I just finished the call to ministry class, which is the first class in the ministerial track, and so we had to do a lot of soul searching about what our call might be, and I revealed to myself that I have not been being truthful to myself for some of the desires that I've had over my whole life. One is to really express myself musically more, and so I see some other things as well. So I am showing up for 2018, following the leads of my heart, because I know that the divine has put those desires in my heart, because that's what I'm here to do. And one of the things that I get every once in a while with someone who's in session with me is that I don't know what my purpose is. I don't even think I have a purpose. And it's like the very fact that you are alive means that you are here for a reason. God put you here on purpose. That's why you're here now. That's why you're here at this lifetime in this existence. So that's 2018. I'm looking at it that way, looking at it as anything that my heart leads me to, I'm just doing. I'm not going to question it. I'm not going to analyze it 8 million times and see if I'm good enough for it. I'm just going to do it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of me this year with those gifts that I've been given. Do we feel complete with this question? Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for all of your responses. They're way better than I mean, I'm really excited with what came out of all of us. And so I would love to bring this session to a close with a closing meditation and prayer, which I will lead. And I wanted to let you all know that I'm going to lead us in a meditative prayer that are around these 4 questions. And if you notice in the pew pockets in front of you, there's a paper there that has the 4 questions already listed for you, so you don't have to try to remember them or write them down. There should be pens available in your pew pockets as well. If something comes to you during the meditation, feel free to write it down. This is a very casual thing. You don't have to just be still if you have something coming. And also on the back is just some information about our spiritual life coaches and what we're here for. Okay, so if you'll come with me now, please, by closing your eyes. And we're going to just relax into our seats. Allow yourself to just be. At first, let's focus our attention on our hearts. And to bring your focus to your heart, it might help to gently place your fingers at the place of your physical heart. And now, with no pressure of doing it correctly or in any way at all, just have your attention gently rest on your heart and breathing into that space for just a few moments. With each breath, just feel that space kind of light up. And now, consciously slow down your breathing. This can be done by counting 5 seconds in and then 5 seconds out. And let's do this for several breaths to bring our breathing down a bit. And finally, let's think of something that represents caring, appreciation, gratitude, or compassion for you. Find something that you can picture in your mind's eye that brings one of those feelings to you: caring, appreciation, gratitude, or compassion. We're going to stay with those feelings for just a few moments, bringing us into a space to ask the questions. And now that we have created coherence between the head and the heart, let us ask our questions into this beautiful field. What is the most beautiful and true thing you can imagine for your life? What are you really passionate about? What do you want to be remembered for? And how do you see yourself expressing your gifts? And so today, we recognize that God's eternal loving presence is right here in the middle of our questions and in the middle of our answers, those that have already been revealed and those yet to come. It urges us forward every step of the way into this new year, one that is full of joy, beauty, truth, passion, and so many opportunities to share our gifts. And so it is.
So let us welcome and join our SLCs in their living room up here on stage. So welcome Claudia, Tara, Lonnie, Jeannie, and Monica.
Well, how are you all? Did you have a good holiday? Yes. Did you clean up already? Your trees out on the curb? Well, it's a fresh new year and a great time to really deep into a conversation about what's important, what we're going to create this year. So we've crafted some questions because you know the nature of a great question brings us to great answers for ourselves. So the first question that we're going to pose today is, what's the most beautiful and true thing you can imagine in your life? Who feels called to? Great, Tara.
So when I thought about this question, the answer was really clear. It was motherhood. If you think about the day when, the day of the birthday, you go into a room and say there's 5 people in that room. No one walks in and no one walks out. But in my case, then there was 7. And the joy of being a witness to these 2 incredible beings and watching them grow has been probably the greatest privilege of my life.
When I first saw this question, what immediately popped into my mind was love. And Corinthians 13:13, the faith, hope, and love thing where love is the greatest thing. And in 2018, I want to expand on the awareness that I'm living my life as though love were at the center of everything, because that's the spiritual truth. That is the spiritual truth. And external conditions pop in, and I forget that, but I want to come back to that and have more awareness of that. I want to be more like a dog in 2018. You know, they live from a place of just unconditional love, knowing that's a spiritual truth 24/7. So that's my goal.
For me, the most beautiful thing in life that I can think of is what just happened here. The laughter, the joy of the spiritual community, and that no matter what is going on in conditions, that there is always somebody in form as God in my life. And for me, that's who I want to be in life for you.
Well, unlike Tara, motherhood never entered into my life, and into my mind. But similarly to the ideas that love and life come together, I was thinking, now that we are having Neil Donald Walsh here, that I wouldn't mind writing a book about conversations with dog, whereby animals really are unconditionally loving, and seeing them greet you at the door with their tails wagging and not asking anything really of you other than unconditional love, maybe a pet or two, maybe taking them to the park, and seeing their joy in just sniffing a leaf is, to me, the fundamental concept of why we are here, just to be happy, just to be part of nature. And so that really, every time I'm out, which I try to be every day in nature and be part of that, really allows me that joy, and I want to continue that on. And through our teachings, I want other people to understand what fundamentally nurturing that is.
Great, thank you. Now I'm feeling badly I left my dog at home. I loved all your answers, and what occurs to me is how we're all connected. To stay connected to divine source, to stay connected to the truth that we are all one, and on a really, really deep level, and that would just transform our planet if we really all got that. And how important it is for us to walk in that truth individually and collectively. And by the way, these questions are questions that we're going to invite you to be answering for yourselves too as we create this manifesto. So the second question is, what are you really passionate about?
Everything. Yes. What I am truly, what gets me out of bed in the morning, that makes me on fire, passionate, joy, is cakes. Did you know that? Right? You've met. But the reason for that is what that brings to me. For me, anything that operates in my world where I take things, like in this case, ingredients, right? But in my life as well, the things that show up as conditions. When I take things and I mix them together, and something that is yucky individually, nobody wants a teaspoon of flour, right? Not my forte. But like when I take it and I mix it with chocolate and eggs, I use neat egg, but whatever, you get the point, right? When I take these conditions and they mix together, and it becomes this beautiful cake, and I get to share it, and I get to share it with others. And that's the passion in my life, is when conditions come and go and do whatever, but my response to it is with Source, and I'm able to have and create and enjoy a life beyond my wildest dreams. Now, that's what gets me out of bed and on a couch. Yes. So I realized I was made a teacher. And so for me, what it is helping people see their own inherent worth, power, and genius. And that this is yours by divine right, by your virtue of the fact that you're breathing. You are genius. You are worthy. You are the individualized expression of the divine. Now, years ago when I was teaching, before I came to Science of Mind, I still had this call. I just didn't know how deep and how far it went. That it was to the core of each of our being. But so what gets me excited and what gets me alive is to when I see the light bulb go off on somebody's face and they wake up to who they are. That's joy.
My passions have evolved over the years, and in the 70s and 80s, my passions were flying and skydiving and scuba diving and motorcycle racing. I mean, and that's all the outside stuff, but I felt really enthusiastic about all of that. And then I met Michelle, and and she became the passion in my life. And she became the passion that is much deeper than just going out and risking your life. It is a love passion. And in my daily activities as a graphic designer, I love doing what I do. But I also love so much in supporting her and what she does in the world in allowing other people to see their own inner beauty and inner light. And through my prison ministry, I've been able to see other individuals, such as Leo, who is in prison for armed robbery and kidnapping, having him write me and say that he got a thrill, used to get a thrill out of holding up a place, and now he gets a thrill out of teaching other inmates what it means to be a real man. That is a thrill. That's a huge thrill for me.
I'm really passionate about the wonder and awe that each one of us is in the world. And cultivating that through meaningful conversations, through building community, through being authentic in our expression, where people can just blossom because they're really seen and heard. I'm really passionate about that. So the third question is, what do you want to be remembered for? I know.
For me, I would like to be remembered as kind and compassionate and empathetic, because my external conditions growing up weren't real pleasant. I had a rough start at the beginning with a couple alcoholic parents who were verbally abusive, and I believe karmically, one of my big lessons this life is to not do that. And I have a lot of compassion and empathy for when anybody else is experiencing any kind of negative emotion, because I know what that's like and I can, walk with them. So if that's all I leave, I'll be very happy.
Actually, we were kind of discussing this, and in the spiritual life coach class that I just finished, one of the things they had us do was write a eulogy of how you want to be remembered. And what an amazing experience that was. For me, I want to be the person that when you think about me, you smile and you laugh because I brought joy into your life. Thank you, Nicole. There was many years of my life where I was so not that person for people that people actually left when I walked into a room. I'm happy to say that doesn't always happen anymore. But see, that's what I want from you. I really do. I want to be that person that when you're in my presence, you feel heard, you feel seen, and you feel joy in your life because of our communication and our experience together. And I also want to be known as the best yaya ever.
Well, I'd like to be known as an example of how spiritual mind treatment and affirmative prayer really works. 4 years ago this last week, I was in the hospital dying, and the doctors said that my only hope was a heart transplant, and I rejected that idea, and I went to alternative medicine, I went to prayer, I went to John of God in Brazil, and now I am much better physically. I don't need a heart transplant. I am working out practically daily with my beloved Michelle, and I'm here to demonstrate this. And I also want to be remembered as kind of Michelle and I as examples of living together and supporting each other in a positive, loving relationship. We both desire that for other people. We really both desire that deliciousness of relationship to be experienced by all.
And you do.
So when I was reading this question, I was like, I've spent a lot of my life hiding, not wanting to be seen. And it made me ask the question, wow. I remember we had done that exercise. I've never been someone who was at a bucket list. I wasn't someone who actually wanted to be remembered. So this question challenged me. So today I don't have an answer for you. I have a question that's worth a year of exploration. What would I want to be remembered for? What would the legacy be? It's easy in motherhood to subjugate your own direction for the direction of rearing great people. But that's their life, not mine. So that's the question I have. What do I want to be remembered for?
I love that you shared that. That's so authentic. I think it comes down to wanting to be a shining light and some laughter in there, and basically that I was a mensch, that I was somebody that had compassion and kindness and walked with some grace and beauty in that. Yeah. How do you see yourself expressing your gifts this year?
So this year, I'm writing a book.
Yes.
So the book is going to be on the topic of unleashing your inner beauty. And it's about living science of mind principles, applying them to our daily life, and aimed at women and asking ourselves this question: what would you do if you actually believed you were beautiful? And I've looked in the hearts of dozens of women and their eyes when I ask them this question, and there's this, and their eyes well up. So I invite you, men, I've been told by my brother-in-law, the equivalent question is if you believed you were sexy. So put on for a moment your inner beauty or your inner sexy, and think about this. How would you take care of your health if you believed you were beautiful or if you believed you were sexy? How would you show up in your relationships? How would you be different? Because it's something you can choose. So that's my work this year, is to help people choose it and make that shift. And then using our science of mind principles to live from it, recognizing that that's divinity shining its light through you as you.
I know I'm sexy. Not bad for a senior citizen. Most of you know that I have a life outside of the church, that I'm a professional, well, I don't know what I'm a consultant. That kind of wraps it up, for high-tech business-to-business consultant for marketing. And I'm very passionate about that. I really love that. I'm very creative at that. But what I really do love is supporting Reverend Michelle in her passion, which is this church. And to see her just smile and radiate warmth and her wisdom and her passion for the teaching that she does on Sundays as well as in the classes, I love to support that. It is wonderful to be able to do whatever I can in the graphics area, in cooking her dinner, in massaging her neck when she gets home, to leaving her quietly play with the dog and and her crossword puzzle. It is my passion to support her in doing that. So I want to continue doing that in all my power through this next year.
Well, I was discussing this with Claudia earlier. This is day, 7 of the new year, and I've been asked this question every day. And I still don't have an answer. I've made it up a couple of times, but I really don't know what 2018 gifts are going to come through. I was in a fabulous workshop yesterday. I'm going to give a shout out to Reverend Sandra Hopper. Her workshop was Freedom to Fly. And it really was about releasing the expectations of that resolution mind that sometimes people get. And I want you to know that January 17th is Dump Your Resolution Day, just in case you need to know that. So for 2018, I'll be just as excited and surprised as you as to what my gifts will bring.
So Reverend Michelle, during our candle lighting service, planted the seed already of, what are your gifts and what are you going to illuminate? And I remember I wrote down wanting to awaken my impact in the things that really meant something to me, whether it's my spiritual life or opportunities to create community in a really creative way, or my creativity. Those are things that seed got really planted. And these questions to create the manifesto is to get it. You may not have a clear-cut answer yet, but let it work in and through you and allow it to come up. What do you value? What is really important to you? Resolutions don't work primarily because they're not lined up with your values. And that's why we have, 21 days into the year, most people just dump them, So it doesn't have sustainability. So for me, it's about what can I sustain with authentic momentum this year? And that's the invitation of this living room conversation. And I thank everyone for sharing so personally, because this is our work. This is what we do as spiritual life coaches for ourselves, but with you. And so now, so I can find it, we're going to do a brief meditation. Around these questions. And in the pew pocket in front of you, we've provided a printout of these questions that we've just answered, along with some information about Spiritual Life Coaches, who we are. We are here to support you in creating and manifesting your Manifesto 2018. So let's start by closing your eyes and relaxing into your seat, allowing yourself just to be. First, turn your attention and focus to your heart. To bring your focus to your heart, it might help to gently place your fingers at the place of your physical heart. Now, with no pressure of doing it correctly, just have your attention gently rest on your heart, breathing into that space. Consciously slow down your breathing. Count 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. Think of something that represents caring, appreciation, gratitude, or compassion for you. And let us stay with those feelings for the next few minutes. Now that we've created coherence between the head and the heart, let us ask our questions into this beautiful field. What is the most beautiful and true thing you can imagine in your life? What are you really passionate about? What do you want to be remembered for? How do you see yourself expressing your gifts this year? And so today, we recognize that God's eternal loving presence is right here in the middle of our questions and in the middle of our answers, those that have already been revealed and those yet to come. It urges us forward every step of the way into this new year, one that is full of joy, beauty, truth, passion, and so many opportunities to share our gifts. And so it is.